Good morning guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got something very exciting for you because we've got the MG Cyberster on review with us today. For those of you who are not familiar, the MG Cyberster is actually a super high performance soft top convertible EV from MG or Morris Garage, as what you might know the brand as. It's a rather interesting car because, you know, for the last couple of years, MG has released some very sensible, very well-made cars, very good value as well. And right now, with the MG Cyberster, you've got a different kind of value because this could possibly be your most cost-effective way to possess supercar levels of performance. So, without any further ado, let's check out the exterior of the car, jump inside and take a look at the interior. And then of course we're going to go take the car for a drive and then I'll tell you what I think about the car. But before we do all that, if you're a driver in Singapore and you're looking for an insurance renewal code for your vehicle, please check out the link in the description box below. It's free to inquire, so check it out if you require a code. Let's go. Alright guys, so jumping straight into the review, this is the exterior of the MG Cyberster and I've taken the top down to show you what the car looks like, obviously with its roof down, and I think it looks absolutely amazing. Very sporty, very aggressive, and I think as far as EVs go, this one really kind of looks like a traditional sports car, like a petrol powered sports car. Being an EV, obviously there's no engine, and therefore there are also they don't really have to play by the same rules that petrol powered cars have in terms of design, but still this one, if you look at the side profile, almost feels like a mid-engine car where the driver cabin is sort of in the middle, like positioned in the middle of the car, which I think looks very, very good, especially with the top down. I'm not sure about you guys, but soft top convertibles generally tend to look a little bit wonky with the top up, so definitely a more pleasing sight when you take the top down and show off the nice silhouette of the entire car. So one of the things that I like about the MG Cyberster in terms of design is definitely the rear portion of the car, because it's got this nice little tail coming up the back here, which I think looks absolutely beautiful. And when the lights are on, the rear light design is actually pretty spectacular as well. Now, aside from being a soft top convertible, some of you might think that, oh, okay, this might be a little bit of an impractical car to use on a day-to-day basis. But if you check out the rear of the car, you'll realize that there is actually a fairly functional boot. And I guess that's the beauty of an EV, right? Because although it has a mid-engine car, sports car shape, it doesn't have the impracticalities of a mid-engine sports car. In fact, it has no engine, so the car actually provides you with some additional space as well. Alright, so let's jump back inside the car. I'll show you the interior, and then after that we're gonna go take the car for a drive. Let's go. Alright guys, so welcome to the cabin of the MG Cyberster. Very, very good looking interior, I must say. First impressions, obviously, that this is a very, very beautiful interior. Going straight into some of the things that you can find in the interior. So obviously there hasn't been an MG Cyberster before this. So in terms of styling language, in terms of familiarity, I would say that there isn't really much for us to reference. But nonetheless, let's talk a little bit about what we can find in the car. So when you get in, immediately you see that the driver cockpit is actually very, very cocooned. There is this entire feeling that you're sort of positioned very neatly within this sort of little capsule here, and I think that's also made prominent by the fact that there's this additional bar over here that you that kind of separates you from the passenger, the front passenger. Oh sorry, there is actually no rear passenger, so my bad there, just the passenger. To kind of emphasize that feel as well, MG has kind of placed in a sort of like a triple screen digital driver's display. So your infotainment unit, digital driver's display, is all integrated into this sort of 3-segment digital screen. And this is all touchscreen operated, minus the actual digital driver's display in the middle. But the other 2 screens on the left and the right, they are actually touchscreen enabled. So on the right hand side, I'm so sorry you can't really see this, but essentially you've got all sorts of driving info available on this screen, and you've also got weather information. Honestly, the information that's presented on these screens is a little bit random. Because, for example, I see weather information here, which I feel like should be part of the infotainment unit. But at the same time, you get things like charging info here. You know, oh shit. I'm so sorry. Not very sure what I'm doing here, but in terms of charging information, energy consumption, there are some dealer information that you can find here. Honestly, it's all a little bit random, so I'm not entirely sure what to call this screen. Like, is it a driving info screen, or is it like an infotainment screen? I'm not entirely sure. But if I were to guess, I would say that the infotainment portion of the car is split into these two screens. Just that this information here is a little bit more info, and the screen here on the left is a bit more entertainment. So of course your radio details, your navigation, your Bluetooth connection, or your music info basically shows up on the left screen here. Speaking about the left screen here, there is no wireless CarPlay or Android Auto. It's wired. Not entirely sure why this is the case, seeing that it is 2025 and this car is called the Cyberster. I would expect that a car today to have wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. But then again, this isn't the only car that doesn't have these things. For example, even the ID bus that I recently tested did not have such a feature. So I'm not entirely sure why automakers are doing this, but definitely a point of improvement. I feel like CarPlay or wireless CarPlay is sort of like a point of parity in today's market. Like you just kind of have to have it. It's almost to the point of like saying that your car doesn't have ABS. You know, it's something that all consumers are going to expect. And more importantly, many cars at a much lower price point already have such things like wireless CarPlay. So why do they not have it? Not very sure. But anyway, moving on to the main digital driver's display. This is a fairly simple interface, and I think the main display shows you your power usage, your speedometer, and of course your charge state, so how much power or how much battery life you have left. And this really is the core things that you will need to know. The speed warnings on this car is a bit overzealous, I feel. So I mean, this is a rather quick car, right? You know, it's got more than 700 Newton meters of torque, 0 to 100 in 3.2 seconds. But every time you step, like especially in Singapore city roads, every time you go past 50, they give you a warning. It goes ping, 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 ping. And then when you go past 90 on the highways, it like goes ping, 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 ping. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Obviously, keeping to the speed limit is important, but I don't know. There's a part of me that feels like these little bits of things is almost counterintuitive, right? You've got a car with such performance capabilities, but then it also has the you know, like the emotional state of something that's very cautious. Doesn't really gel well to like together. One thing I found quite useful though on my other drives is that the driver tracking or the driver monitoring is actually quite good and quite effective. So there was one day where I was driving back in the rain, and then I was feeling a little bit sleepy, and then the driver warning actually sounded off, you know, asked me to take a break, and then it started beeping non-stop, which was really annoying at first, but actually it was really helpful in keeping me awake. So after that first incident, then, you know, it started beeping, and then I sort of woke up, and then I just continued the rest of my drive home without any real issue. So pretty cool. I kind of like that. Now, going on to the rest of the car. So generally speaking, the car's cabin is quite swooping. There's a bit of a C-shaped thing going on here. Reminds me of the old Jaguar XJ, actually. The cabin, I think it has a little bit of those vibes, especially the C-shaped dashboard. And I think it's a very nice design. I've got no complaints about the design. In this particular car, we've got the black on red, or brown. It depends on how you call, like what you would call this, whether you call this red or brown. But for conversation's sake, let's just call it brown or red. Yeah, red. So this black on red interior actually works really well on the car, and it's almost got a little bit of a vintage feel to it, which I think really ties in with the whole branding of the car, because after all, the MG Cyberster was kind of built as a sort of like based on the legacy of the MG Roadster. So a little bit of a homage to a car from another generation there. And I think having this vintage looking colors definitely does help to kind of bring out that kind of notion. Where can you find these red colors? So steering wheel, definitely you have your red leather. You've got red Alcantara all over the side panels here. And then your seats, the middle portion of your seats are also, you can see here, they are also lined with this red color. And they are very good looking portions actually. I would say it does look really, really nice. In terms of the center console, so aircon display actually has this dedicated screen down here. You can't really see it because it's blocked by this pillar, but generally speaking, I'll say it's pretty easy to operate. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, and this display is here all the time. You can change the screen to display other portions of things like ambient lighting, car details, MG Pilot, so you can change your cluster, the way your cluster looks as well, the type of information that's displayed on your driver's display. So this in itself is also like another center console unit or another infotainment unit. I'm not entirely sure what the reason is, but essentially what going back to my earlier point about having two separate screens, or your infotainment screen being split into 1 and 2, it will appear that it now split into 3 as well. So there's actually 3 separate screens to show what typically could be shown on one screen. And I can understand that from a styling element, this was what they were trying to go for. But, perhaps it just feels a little bit like an afterthought. Like, why couldn't more information be fit into these 2 screens so that this center portion could be opened up, or, could be either made into something more practical or made into something more stylish. I guess the effect of having something like that is that it's not really very intuitive. You wouldn't really know where to look for different things that you're trying to look for. But then again, to be fair, this is probably something that you just need to get used to, and after you get used to it, and after you've owned the car for some time, you'll probably know where to find every single thing. Just like it's just like how the organization in our own homes are probably not the most intuitive, but somehow we manage to find things in the mess, also because we know where we put them. So similarly, I think after a while of, like after a period of using the car, you'll probably get used to where you find certain bits of information, but definitely not the most intuitive layout you will see in the car today. Then again, you're probably not buying this car for its practicality and for little things like that. You're probably buying this car because of its appearance, its power, and the fact that it's such good value for money in terms of how much money you have to pay for so much power. It's actually pretty mind-blowing. Now, I digress. But beside the center console screen over here, there is the drive selector, which is pretty unique. I wouldn't say it's good or bad, but it's not a single dial that you dial through the drive, neutral, reverse, park. It's more of a button base, a bit like what you might find on a Lamborghini. Not exactly the same thing, but a little bit of similar concept. Like each drive mode has a specific button. So you have a specific button for the drive, neutral, reverse, and park. Alright, so aside from all that, some of the few little random things is that, okay, you still have 2 cup holders in this car. So despite the small cabin space and despite the sports car nature of this car, you still got 2 functional cup holders, which are very nice. You've got a slot for your mobile phone, you've got a center cubby, and that's pretty much it. On the steering wheel, yes, steering wheel. So quite a sophisticated looking steering wheel. Aside from its pretty design, it does have some functionality as well. So aside from your regular controls, one of the buttons that is of particular interest in this car is obviously the Super Sport button that you find over here. And this button essentially brings you straight into Super Sport mode, which is the mode that will allow you the full extent of power in the MG Cyberster. You don't have to toggle through any sort of menus. You can just press this button and it goes whatever mode you're on, whether you're on custom, comfort, sport, it will go into Super Sport straight away. And when you deactivate it, you press it again, it goes back to the previous mode that you left it. It goes back to the previous mode just before you went into Super Sport mode. So I think that's pretty good. So if you're driving in comfort, you press Super Sport, do your business, press it again, and it goes back into comfort. I'll show you a little bit more about, or we'll talk a little bit more about this later on when we take the car for a drive. But yes, that's the MG Cyberster interior for now. If you got any questions about the interior or things that you can't see, so yeah, please put your questions in the comment section. So sorry that you can't really see most of the car because the car is pretty tight, and we've got the camera mounted on the side, on the passenger side, and unfortunately that kind of limits the view that you can see in the interior today. But yeah, let's take a short pause and then let's take the car for a drive, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how the car feels. Let's go. Alright guys, so now we are up on the roads in the MG Cyberster, taking it for a drive. And to get some basic specifications out of the way, this car runs on a 77 kilowatt hour battery pack. So for a performance car of this level, battery pack is actually quite a decent size, not too big. So in terms of full charging, that shouldn't take too long as well. You know, in the rare case that you run the battery down to a low percentage and you want to charge it up again, the whole thing shouldn't take all that long. In fact, on the 50 kilowatt charger, that will just take slightly over an hour. Performance wise, dual electric motors, all-wheel drive, and this is actually driving power to like I said, all four wheels. Performance figures, you have about 536 horsepower produced by this car, so quite a lot for a car this size and this weight. 700, more than 700 newton meters of torque, quite a lot actually, 725, and this car will do 0 to 100 in a whopping 3.2 seconds, which makes it one of the fastest cars on the market today. And especially if you look at the electric car market today, you do find quite a number of cars in recent times with sub 4 second timings, but we haven't really seen something that goes 3.2 seconds in a while. Obviously there are cars that will be quicker than this, but obviously they are going to come in at a much higher price point, which interestingly, for a car as fancy and dressed up as the MG Cyberster, it would appear that value would be one of the key selling points of the MG Cyberster, because essentially coming in at $300,000 in Singapore right now, this could be the most amount of power that you can get for the least amount of money, which is actually a pretty impressive selling point if your purpose of exploring this purchase is really to get something that is exciting and invigorating and quick, and not to mention really eye-catching as well, because some of the options currently available on the market that can do 3.8 seconds or can push out that level of performance, they still take the form of fairly regular day-to-day cars. For example, your BYD Seal performance, your Tesla performance, your Polestar 4, Zeekr X. Those are all cars with 4 doors, can do your everyday, can fill the role of your everyday day-to-day car, but they do look a little bit regular, so to speak. And the MG Cyberster is the only one, only EV at the moment that produces this level of performance at this price point and has the appearance of a proper lifestyle vehicle. And when I say appearance of a lifestyle vehicle, obviously I'm referring to the soft top or the convertible format of the MG Cyberster. Unfortunately, we are shooting this review in the middle of the monsoon surge in Singapore here in January, and it's not exactly raining at the moment, but the roads are still pretty wet. So, you know, for the purpose of today's review, we're just going to leave the top down, or rather, no, not top down, top up. A little bit confused there. So we're going to leave the roof on for today's review because there's still a lot of spray from the roads coming from other cars. And I guess that's also going to give you a really good idea of how the car functions on the day-to-day with the roof in place in terms of noise insulation and things like that. Generally speaking, although this isn't this probably isn't a car that's built entirely for comfort, I would say that comfort levels are actually fairly decent. The ride is pretty firm, and when you go over those little imperfections in the road, you know, in Singapore we have a lot of these construction bits here on Singapore's roads, but and you do feel the road when you go over these little bit of imperfections, but generally speaking, I would not consider it uncomfortable. In fact, I think it's quite dailyable in a sense. So ride is a little bit firm. However, it's not firm to the point of, say, something like a C63 AMG, which we tested recently as well. That feels even harsher than this particular car. So I would imagine that if we were to use the MG Cyberster on a day-to-day basis, you wouldn't be all that frustrated. Another thing that I quite like about this car is the fact that although it's a soft top, insulation coming in from the roof is actually pretty well executed. So I don't really have a huge ton of noise coming in through the roof as compared to other convertibles or other soft top convertibles that we have tested in the market. Obviously, there is going to be a little bit more road noise than if you were to compare this to a proper coupe or proper hardtop. But definitely a lot better than plenty of other soft tops out there. So I think that's really one of the things that have kind of the MG has going for it, or rather the Cyberster has going for it. Alright, now obviously being the wet season, we haven't had all that much opportunity to kind of gun this car around, but going a little bit into the performance element of the car, generally speaking, if you drive around in comfort mode, the car is already pretty quick. And what's also interesting is that when you really step on it, it almost feels like the car has a second gear, which has a nice kick to it. So the initial acceleration is pretty mild, and then once the car senses that you want to go faster, it actually kicks in this additional gear, and then you kind of just get thrown forward, right? All that 725 Newton meters of torque. Obviously, in comfort mode, you're not going to get the full 725 Newton meters of torque because the driving mode has already regulated how much power is available at this current juncture. But there are various driving modes in the car. So unlike many other EVs where the pedal shifters are used to modulate or to change how much regenerative braking is available in the car, in the MG Cyberster specifically, you use your pedal shifters to change the driving mode. So currently I'm in comfort mode, and then you tap right to change it into sport mode, which gives you a second level of performance. But there's a nice little red button here on the steering wheel which says Super Sport, which gives you the full beans in terms of performance. So if you are so inclined to gun this car, momentarily probably, you can actually tap the Super Sport button. It has a direct access button here, so whether you're in comfort or sport, you can actually tap the Super Sport button, and then immediately you have access to the full range of power available in the MG Cyberster. So if you want to gun for 3.2 seconds, you want to get 725 Newton meters of torque worth of power, this is the button that you press. I've managed to press, despite this weather, we have been able to press this button and experience the full extent of its acceleration, and I tell you, it is absolutely mind-blowing. Really, really quick, really, really special. So that is something that, especially if you are a buyer who is currently looking for a performance vehicle. Not so much in terms of a track vehicle or something that you would necessarily race, but just something that is extremely quick, that can take on the likes of other supercars on the market. Then I think this is a really special option to look at, especially at this kind of value as well. Going back to the driving modes, if you tap it again, it goes to sport, and you tap it again, it goes to custom. So there's a custom mode as well, which unfortunately we haven't actually played with. And then of course you go back to comfort. On the left hand side of the pedals, actually it doesn't really do anything at the moment. There used to be, let me see. Okay, yeah. So at the moment it doesn't really, I can't really see. Oh, regenerative braking settings are on the left hand side, sorry. So instead of a usual up-down approach where you toggle the right and left pedal for regenerative braking, now all the regenerative braking settings are on one pedal, so you just tap it to go through the cycle. So there are 3 levels, one being the least amount of regenerative braking, and 3 being the most. So yeah, so if you want to have a choice of regenerative braking as well, it is available on the Cyberster, although I think probably most people would just leave in level 1, the lowest regenerative braking, because I don't think people are going to be buying this car for efficiency or for energy conservation, obviously because of the way this car has been spec'd for a bit of performance. Currently now, I'm sort of sitting in a bit of heavy traffic, and I'm not sure whether you can hear through the cameras, but there is a little bit of noise coming through the what you would normally call a C-pillar. Obviously in a convertible like that, the C-pillar is a bit of a, I mean, it isn't so clear-cut, but you do get a bit of noise coming in from the rear here. But that's pretty much about the only noise that you get from the roof mechanism or from the soft top in the Cyberster. In most other convertibles, actually I can hear the noise coming through the entire spectrum of the roof, and obviously that's not very pleasant for day-to-day use. But I think in the MG Cyberster, actually you can sort of hear, okay, lorry coming, you can hear it. But this isn't something that's, like, if you're new to convertibles, this isn't something that's specific to the Cyberster. Okay, any soft top convertible will subject you to this sort of road noise once in a while, especially if you've got something very large and very heavy driving beside you. Okay, now all that power, let's talk about how we use it. So obviously the Cyberster is great in a straight line. All-wheel drive provides a lot of grip as well. So even in slightly wet weather, when we were pressing the car hard in super sport mode, you could feel all the 4 wheels dig in and really propel the car forward, which is really exciting. I don't know, it gives you a sort of sense of assurance as well, somewhat, that there is a level of grip available in the car that you can actually tangibly feel. So I think that's really positive. Handling is, I mean, we haven't really pushed the car to the limit, but if you talk about taking a corner with a bit more of a spirited fashion, you definitely do get quite a lot of response from the steering wheel. So very responsive car. Also, given its weight and given its size, very agile car to work with. However, what I did realize was that when I was taking on highway drives at a prolonged higher speed, I did feel like the car felt faster than it was actually going. So to be very frank, 90 kilometers per hour in this car felt a bit like 110. And obviously if you're going at 110, then the car feels even faster. But what I'm getting at here is the fact that if you're going to use this car as a sort of grand tourer or long trips up to Malaysia, I'm not entirely sure that this is the most suitable car to do it in, because it can make the drive feel a little bit tiring in my opinion. So with that, I'm gonna say that if you're approaching this purchase from a perspective where you're looking for something quick, something pretty, and something that provides you the lifestyle option of having a soft top convertible, I would say that this car definitely ticks a lot of the boxes. But perhaps this car is probably more well used as a city car, more to be seen in. I mean, it is a very beautiful car after all, but more to be seen in rather than to be raced or tracked, so to speak. And in fact, I think even longer trips up north, if you want to take the, despite all its power, taking it in a more relaxed fashion will probably bring out the best in the car. You probably get to enjoy the car more if you just take this car at about 110 kilometers per hour and then just let it do its thing, feel comfortable in the car with the top down, beautiful car, be seen. So that's my take on the MG Cyberster. If you have any questions about the car that I've missed out on, please feel free to leave your comments or your questions in the comment section below. I'm sorry I can't really show you how fast the car goes today because obviously traffic is a little bit heavy. But if you have found this review useful, or if you have enjoyed it in any way, please consider giving this video a like, share it with your friends, and of course subscribe to the channel because we've got more reviews coming out every single week. As usual, if you're a driver in Singapore and you're looking for an insurance renewal quote for the best price, please check out the link in the description box below. We've got some of the best insurance renewal quotes for you to compare and check out. It's free to inquire, so get a quote from us, compare it with your existing quote, and you can see which one is actually giving you better value. And with that, please take care of yourself, stay safe, and we will see you next time.